everybody, and welcome to another episode of our pre-interviews for our Wisdomcon conference. The Wisdomcon conference is September 24th to the 26th, and our conference is unique in that we are creating lectures and workshops alternating so that you can have a very integrated and interactive experience. So we have carefully selected some incredible speakers to come and share their wisdom with you in order for us to prepare for everything that's occurring in the next few years. Mind, body, soul. And today I have with me Matthew Mournian, who will be talking about some wonderful, very important key elements of our healing and awareness. And I'm going to read some of his bio before we begin. So Matthew Aaron Mournian is a professional psychic reader and intuitive healer specializing in the release and removal of negative energy manifestations from the body, things like entity attachments, astral parasites, implantation, and many other strange phenomena that are often completely misunderstood in our modern-day world. His current mission is to assist with the healing of the human body and our collective consciousness through the activation and the expanding multidimensional intuitive healing abilities that exist within each and every one of us. Matthew's daily practice follows a multi-part protocol of multidimensional tarot, spiritual guide consultation, elements of traditional Chinese medicine, and then direct transmissions of multidimensional energy using an extraterrestrial healing modality known as scalar toning, to release a variety of physical, emotional, and energetic malaise from the body. In 2019, Matthew was guided to form an intuitive healer training program for expanding the multidimensional beings who have chosen to be of service to humanity during this great dimensional shift. The School of Multidimensional Intuition was born and in the time since has grown into a global multidimensional educational project whose purpose is to reawaken the great mystic, ancient healer, and the spiritual warrior within each of us. Whether it be through intuitive consultation, energy clearing, or a psychic development, it is Matthew's mission to assist with the liberation of mankind during this time of great awakening and expansion of human consciousness. You can find him and read more about his work at rememberyourmission.com. I love that domain. So Matthew, welcome, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. I mean that very sincerely.
Beautiful. Well, tell us a little bit. So there's so many things that we want to talk about, but first I want to hear about this ET technology. How did that come about? How did you come into that? What is it? Why do we need to know it?
I will tell the story. And other people have heard me tell this one before, so it's always a fun one if you haven't heard it. But I am basically a product of an experience that I had I believe this was December 2017. In December of 2017, I was working at a psychic shop in Los Angeles, and I was just doing sort of like kind of just like a quiet moment. I closed my eyes doing like a meditation at work. And for some reason in that moment, I was taken to a space out of body, sort of what I believe to be just a pocket dimension in which I encountered some very, very tall, humanoid, dark-skinned beings. They took me through a number of processes, which I could go into further detail, but it culminated with me having an experience in which I observed myself basically appearing to heal an alien being, an alien child in that experience. And, you know, it was something that I observed in my own way. However, afterward, I began to mimic it. I began to copy what I experienced and copy the sound that I heard at that time. And here we are many, many years later. And what I discovered was that the human body, or what I was shown rather in that experience, was that the human body has the ability to create a highly expanded auditory frequency capable of opening and harmonizing non-physical anatomy and also physical anatomy in just very, very, not necessarily new, but ways that will seem unprecedented here on the earth plane. And so it was really just an example of me having what I believe to be an out-of-body extraterrestrial experience and literally running with it to the extent that here we are now many years later, and we're using these very frequencies, and it's an actual tone that we learn how to sort of create and sort of mold and send. There's also phrases that come with it, but now we're teaching other people how to do it. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, that's how I came about it.
Absolutely. That's incredible. And do you have a sense of what kind of beings you were in touch with? Who are they? Who are these
That's a
people? And
very, yeah. Thank
mhm.
you for asking that. That's a very good question. I have noticed within our disclosure and spiritual community, there is a great need for humans to define or name or label these races. And so maybe I'm an anomaly within our spiritual like community, but I can tell you one thing, no being has ever come to me and said, hey, guess what? I'm from, I'm an Arcturian. I'm from this place or that place. And so I'm going to be honest with you. No, they have never identified themselves. But what I noticed was that they're a very tall, dark skinned race of what appear to be Zulu type warriors, possibly Dogon tribe beings, very, very tall. I noticed they had somewhat of a different articulated joints, meaning there's some physical differences from, our sort of humanoid style. And what I experienced from these beings was that they were sort of doing this dance. There's this sort of like shamanic race that, by my understanding, is making contact with many of us on the earth plane. But they were doing this sort of dance, and they came up to me and they blew this sort of powder in my face. And I was taken to a number of places after that. In one specific encounter that I had with them, they actually said a phrase to me upon me asking, where they are, where they're from. And the answer I was given by these beings, it was an elder of one of them. And the answer actually came out of his mouth in a form of smoke and light and drew a map for me. They gave me a phrase which I very, very rarely utter, which I believe to be some extension of me mimicking their language as well. But to be honest with you, I do not know where they're from. And I think right now at this stage, it is intended to be so that we as humans don't over-identify or sort of anchor ourselves to any one form. Because I think what we're going to find in the future is that, many of the places and races that we identify as these names are actually not at all what they're called, not on any level. But anyway, I don't know if that answers
I
your question.
actually completely agree with that. I think the names that we think they are is just our own perceptions through our own filters, and we have no idea the kind of races and the amount of species that are out there. So that's amazing. So tell us about, you talked about consciousness, and so why do you think now is an important time to do this work? I mean, what's happening? Is there anything that you see coming in the coming years? I mean, it's pretty obvious that we're going through a major transition in the world, but why does the average human really need to know how to do these things at this time?
It's a very good question. I think that we are coming to a stage of consciousness development here on the earth plane in which we are at a choice point. There is really no need, I think, for any of the beings existing, at least the ensouled beings. And I say this carefully with complete knowledge that not every human that lives on this earth plane has a soul. But for those that do, we are coming to much more of a choice point than I would say a need on any level. And the choice point is, I think one of the things that happens when we step into the stage of consciousness that we loosely term as fourth density, not fifth density, fourth density, in which our consciousness makes a choice. We will make a sort of directional choice in which we're either going to develop or we are going to sort of allow. And so for many of us right now, we are choosing to develop, or what is essentially meet and sort of encounter and also form a new stage of identity. And so for those that do so, one of the gateways within that experience is really beginning to come in contact with a new form of consciousness or a new form of energy that for many of us on earth often manifests within the physical body in the form of psychic or intuitive abilities, but also in many other ways. And so I think that we're at the stage of our journey on earth in which many people are noticing that in order to manifest the timelines that we seek, or the outcomes, or the sort of, like the spiritual carrots that dangle in front of our faces, we are called to become more. We are called to develop on a different level. We are called to strengthen ourselves. And so I think right now it's really an organic awakening process that is occurring. And yet at the same time, there is an equally proportional amount of what some people would call darkness or other type of energy that is trying to stop that. And so, it's just par for the course, I think, for humans. We're also coming into a bit of a timeline repetition stage that some people would say mirrors certain events that took place at what some people call the fall of the era of Atlantis, as well as many others. That's the one that most people seem to always bring their minds back to. So that's the one we use. But so it's both a timed event, it's a choice. And I think for some of us, it is an inevitability. Like for me, this sort of awakening process was something that I realized it was going to happen. But anyway, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. So an interesting thing that I heard you say is that some some beings don't have souls. So what is the soul, and how can
Well,
we
what a good
differentiate?
question.
Like what is that? Can you expand on that?
What is the soul? Oh man, that's like the $1,000,000 question. I think for most of us at this stage, we will kind of understand the soul as being your unique consciousness that sort of extends in and beyond and outside of this body and through the many versions of you that exist throughout the plane. I think one of the things that we are discovering, which is still a bit of a controversial idea for those of us that are in different stages of this process, is that one of the facets of the third density Earth environment is that it's going to manifest a certain type of life form, that being a human. They're going to manifest so many of them that in many cases there are a number of container type beings that will exist on the Earth plane. It's for some of us that have a lot of deeply entrenched beliefs about the way that we think things are. It can be a challenging idea, but at this stage, we are living on an Earth plane in which there are a large amount of just non-souled container beings. Many of them are in places of extreme power. A couple of them right now are creating a startup to extend their human lives indefinitely. Y'all can do a little Google search and figure out who I'm talking about. But anyway, yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting. And so we tend to think of the soul as that consciousness, that life force that produces life in the physical body. So what would you say is the opposite of that? How are these beings operating? What is maintaining their existence? What are they connected to in order to exist
Very good
on that
question.
level?
That's a very good question. I don't know that I can accurately answer that question. I think that's something that we are all figuring out together. It's part of the stage in which humanity or certain people or those that are working in certain areas begin to realize that we now know certain things that we don't know versus we didn't know what we didn't know before. Now we know that we don't know certain things. Granted, there's a whole other, level of change and knowledge and things that are going to develop. And so I don't know that the soul is a thing that we could quantify or sort of define in terms of opposites, in terms of it is this, but it isn't that. I can tell you that at the very best, it is a theory. And at the very least, it is a theory that we are constantly constructing. And so I don't know if that answers it.
Okay, let's talk about what you're going to be presenting. Let me just open up really quickly. Please do tell us, what will you be talking about?
Totally. I think what we're going to be doing, or what I have been kind of assigned and chosen to do over there, I believe for about the next 3 years, is an information dissemination phase in which we are called to just continue to inform people about certain specific changes taking place within the layers of non-physical anatomy in the body, i.e. the chakras, the meridians, and also within the physical organs themselves. We're at the sort of choice point in human development in which many people will begin to sort of adopt another stage of their identity journey simply by learning about the substances and the way these non-physical forces work in the body. And so the vast majority of what I'm doing right now is helping people understand the way non-physical energy works. And not that that would make me an authority on it on any level. I think everyone's figuring it out in their own way. But I've found that the more I have embraced that, the more it seems to happen and the more we are called to do it. So the first stage is a little bit about just passing on information that generates awareness. And then the second stage is on helping people kind of understand what it is that we can do. What are the things that are available to humans? How do we change? What are the sort of things that we might be looking forward to? And also, how do we actually create these changes? And so it's really just talking about kind of like an intelligence briefing on multidimensionality and, how we can take advantage of it. So, yeah.
Well, we are very excited to have you, Matthew. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. And if people want to connect with you, where can they find you? Where can people connect with you? Do you have any other social medias or
Totally.
channels?
Yeah. Private sessions and group training this is literally what we do on an everyday basis. And for those that are interested, you can find me at my website, rememberyourmission.com. You can also view the content that we teach and the processes that we go through for free, literally free on YouTube at the School of Multidimensional Intuition. Long title, but School of Multidimensional Intuition on YouTube. And so, yeah. There we are.
Wonderful. I will put all of those links down below, so please do check them out. Connect with Matthew, get sessions with him, and learn a little bit more about the multidimensional body and how to heal. It is so important. I'm a super huge fan of this work, and the time is now. So thank you to everyone that has tuned in today, and we really are excited to see you at the Wisdomcon, September 24th to 26th. So please do share, like, if you found some value in this interview with your network, and we can't wait to connect with our brothers and sisters then. Take care. Bye-bye.